That's what we did spend on rent and utilities, or what Vivian spent on rent and utilities. Now, we're looking for the part that she did not budget for that. So if we're looking for that part, okay, we can either solve for each one of these and then add them up together. Okay, but that's going to take us a long time because we're going to turn each of these into a decimal and multiply by our 2,200. Or we can take what we know is the rent and utilities and we can subtract it from the total, and that should give us the overall amount for the rest of the 4 categories. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do to make it a little bit easier and save a little bit of time. 2,200 minus 1,210. Okay, and I can borrow from that 2, and then borrow from this 2. 11 minus 2 is 9. That gives me $990 that overall Vivian could spend on everything else. So if we're looking for the fraction that represents that, that's going to be our part, okay? That's going to be the part that she spends on everything else. And then our whole, or our bottom number, is going to be the total amount she had to spend, which is that original $2,200. So there's my fraction right there. Okay. Now, when you were working this at home, you could have divided this and gotten a decimal and then gone through and divided each of these answer choices and saw what matched up. That would have been fine. Okay. The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and divide. Okay. Go ahead and divide and simplify or reduce these two numbers and figure out which of these fractions it becomes. Okay, the first thing I see is they both end in zeros, so I know I can divide both of them by 10 and eliminate those zeros. And that would give me, I'm going to come over here to have some more room, 99 over 220. Okay, now we can go through, we can start with 1. No, I'm sorry, not with 1. We can look and see, are these both even? We know they're not, and we can go from 3 and go from there. And I'm going to tell you they're both divisible by 11. And 99 divided by 11 gives me 9. 220 divided by 11 gives me 20. So my answer there should be 9 out of 20. Okay, looking at number 3. Number 3 says, expressed as a decimal, what part of Vivian's budget is allotted for other expenses? Well, the first thing I notice when I look up here, trying to figure out what other expenses are, there's a category named other. Okay, so my other expenses is talking about this 1 over 20 right here, okay, that represents the part of the income. So I know that I'm looking at 1 over 20 as my fraction. So I'm going to come back down here to number 3, and I'm going to write 1 over 20. That's my fraction, okay? It just wants to know it expressed as a decimal. So if we divide our top end and bottom out here, that leaves the 1 inside, the 20 outside. Most of you know 20 does not go into 1. So I'm going to add my 0 and my decimals. Now I can add a 0. Does 20 go into 10? No. Add a 0. Does 20 go into 100? Yes, it goes in 5 times. 20 times 5 is 100. Okay, and I get a remainder of 0. So my decimal here is 0.05. And then we can fill in our bubbles beneath there. Okay, we're skipping number 4 and going to number 5. Lily baked 24 cookies. She gave 3/8 of the cookies to neighbors. 12 cookies were shared with family. Lily kept the remaining cookies. What percent of the cookies did Lily keep for herself? Okay, so we've got to figure out, based on what she gave away and what she shared, how much we had left. So when we look at 2 dozen cookies, the first thing we need to figure out is how many is 2 dozen. Okay, we know that if 1 dozen is 12, 2 dozen is 24. Bye. Okay, she gave 3/8 of the cookies to her neighbors. So we can figure out what is 3/8 of 24. We can either turn this into a decimal and multiply by 24, or we can set it up with a proportion. Okay, so either way you worked this, it would be right. And we could do 3/8 out of 24. So you could either solve this little proportion here, or you could make this a decimal and then multiply. Because we worked number 1 by turning them into decimals and multiplying, that's how I'm going to show you how to do it. But this way would work also. Okay, so 3/8 as a decimal. Do my top in, bottom out. 8 does not go into 3, so I'm adding decimals and zeros. 8 goes into 30 3 times. Okay, 3 times 8 is 24. When I subtract, I should get a 6. Add a 0, bring it down. Okay, 8 goes into 67 times. 7 times 8 is 56. Minus, I get a 4. And I'm going to add a 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 45 times. Minus 40, and I finally get my 0. So I've got my 0.375, and now I can multiply that times 24. Okay, and again, you can always just leave this as 3/8 and multiply it straight across, and multiply by 24 over 1. So 0.375 times 24. 5 times 4 is 0, or it's 20. Put my 0 down, carry my 2. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 2 is going to give me 30. Add a 0, put my 3 up top. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is going to give me 15. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So now I can add a 0 here. 5 times 2 is 10. 0, carry my 1. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. Put my 5, carry my 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And I can add these up. 0, 0, 5 and 5 makes 10. 7, 8, 1 makes 9. Now I'm going to count my decimals. 1, 2, 3 decimals there. 1, 2, 3 decimals here. Okay, so 9. So 3/8 of 24 cookies equals 9 cookies. So she's giving 9 to her neighbors. Okay, and 12 were shared with family. So all together, we gave away how many here? 9 plus 12 gives me 21. And if I had 24 cookies minus 21 cookies, I get 3 cookies. That is 3 actual whole cookies. That is not 3%. Okay, I can still turn this into a percent. The easiest way is probably to use our proportions we've been using. Our part here is what? 3. Our whole here is our 24. 3 times 100 is going to give me 300. Now I can go back and I can divide by my 24. Okay, and I'm gonna go up here and give myself some room, or actually I'm gonna move down here. When I start dividing, 24 does not go into 3, but it goes into 30 one time. Minus 24, and I'll get a 6. Bring down my 0. 24, then comes 48. So it goes in twice. $60 minus 48 gives me $12. Now I can add a decimal because I'm not finished, and add a 0 and bring it down. 24, 48. 72, 96, 120. So it goes into 120, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So my percent here is actually 12.5%. Okay, be very careful not to put 3%. It was 3 whole cookies, not 3%. Okay, so that was kind of a lot of work, but it wasn't too bad. And our answer should be B, 12.5%. Okay, all right, let's look at number 6. Number 6 says, Montrell uses the following coins to make exact change for his purchase. 2 quarters, 3 dimes, 1 nickel, and 4 pennies. Which statement correctly represents the coins Montrell uses to make exact change? Okay, so we're just going to kind of slowly go through here and see what we've got. F says 50% of the coins he uses are quarters. Okay, well, let's count them up. We know 50% is half, right? Okay, that's usually one that's pretty easy for people. We can tell half pretty quickly. So we've got 2 quarters. Okay, 2 quarters, and then if we count them all up, there's 2 and 3, that gives me 5. Plus 1 gives you 6, and 4 is 10. So we've got a nice number 10 on the bottom. And then let's just check it. Let's put that 2 quarters on the top. Well, is 2 out of 10 going to reduce down and give me 1/2? 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So no, not even close. Okay, G says 2/3 of the coins he uses are pennies. 2/3. Well, we know we can write that as 2 over 3. 2/3 of the coins he uses are pennies. So now let's go back and let's make another fraction where we're using our pennies. So again, we've got 10 on the bottom because there's 10 total coins. Okay, and what we're looking at this time is if the pennies are our part. So this time we're going to use that 4 pennies to make our top number. Okay, and again, we're going to go through and we're just going to kind of simplify this down and see if we get 2/3. Okay, you calculator kids, this would be a good time to get out y'all's chart, y'all's 100 grid multiplication chart. Okay, and you can look at that. So when I divide both of these by 2, 4 divided by 2 gives me 2, and 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So no, 2/5 and 2/3 are not equal. Okay, the next one says 3/10 of the coins he uses are dimes. Well, that's an easy one because we know that 3/10 is just 3 over 10. So hopefully we won't have to do any reducing here. So if we come over here, again, 10's our denominator because there's 10 total coins. Okay, and we're looking just for the dimes. How many dimes were there? 3. So 3 over 10. So I'm saying that should be my answer.